In 1897, a businessman named Spencer Schotter bought the property, and he made all of his money basically in naval stores, which are products made from pine trees, so turpentine rosin. He was really big in the naval stores industry. He bought the property and he built this huge mansion that they say rivaled the Biltmore estate in Asheville. He hired the architect firm of Carrere and Hastings out of New York to design it, and he filled it with art and treasures. The gardens were filled with statuary. There was a portrait of Casimir Pulaski inside. There was a sculpture of Venus de Milo that was, rivaled artwork all over the world. And the fountain behind us was also commissioned by Spencer Schotter in 1898 by a local stone and monument company, Roach and Company. And it's the last piece of this Schotter era for the property. So Schotter ended up kind of losing his fortune. His company, he had to sell off his assets because it was an antitrust case was brought against him. So he sold all of his property, including the Greenwich estate, in 1917 to a Dr. Torrey from Detroit who had come down and seen the property. And he basically sold the house and all of its belongings, so all of the artwork and statuary and furnishings. But in 1923 there was a fire that started by a short circuit in an upstairs sewing room. And the house was basically a total loss. Pretty much everything inside burned up as well. There was no loss of life, everybody was able to escape, but this huge mansion and all of its wealth and opulence inside that people, oohed and awed over was a total loss. Earlier, during Spencer Schotter's ownership, Greenwich was one of the early sort of silent film sites. So the southeast, Jacksonville, Florida, Savannah, was a site before Hollywood kind of became the place to make movies, was one of the places that was one of the early film sites. And so they filmed several movies out here. In 1915, they filmed Under the Southern Skies. Stolen Moments is one that you can see snippets of on YouTube, and it starred Rudolph Valentino in the last film where he was a villain before he hits it big as a heartthrob. And that movie in particular is great because you can see a lot of Greenwich, the house and the gardens, and so you really get a feel of what the Greenwich estate was like before the fire. During the American Revolutionary War, Greenwich was the landing site for the French forces that were assisting the American patriots, and they were Casimir Pulaski landed here as part of the Siege of Savannah battle, and then after he was wounded in the Siege of Savannah, he was brought back here, his body was brought back here, and is said to be buried at Greenwich Plantation. So when they built the Pulaski Monument downtown, those remains were disinterred and then reinterred with the monument. So it has a very important Revolutionary War history as part of being part of the sort of surrounding area where the Patriot forces kind of gathered to try to take Savannah back from British control. So then, you're going through the plantation history where, we have these wealthy plantation owners who are really making their wealth and being successful on the backs of enslaved labor. So that's an important history we need to recognize. This is prized land here on the Wilmington River, and so really it's always been sort of owned by wealthy people who got to enjoy that. The city purchased it in 1937, basically as an addition, as an extension to Bonaventure Cemetery, which is adjacent. And I kind of think that's fitting that now it is a site that can be enjoyed by so many Savannah citizens. It's now a place for everybody to come. So even if you don't get buried here or have your family here, you can come and visit it and you can enjoy these beautiful views and the property. Whereas before, it was always limited to the wealthy and the privileged. It's the landscape details that are still here and the things that make Greenwich so special as a property. The gates when you come in, kind of that grand drive of entering Greenwich is very special as well. And just the expansive views. This is a really peaceful, quiet place. If you want to come and enjoy the marsh and the river, this is a really lovely place to do that with a picnic and just enjoy the peace. A lot of people think of cemeteries as sort of depressing, sad places, but they are one of the most beautiful places we have in our properties, and to enjoy the nature and the beauty of the land.